Shai. Everybody, the brothers have already kind of killed it. Sisters, I hope you guys did the same. But everyone's free to take as much chai as you want. I'm keeping the rest, so depending on how much you love me, you don't have to take much or take a lot, whatever you want. Main things, just ask as many questions as possible, both sides. There's some QR codes for the sisters. If you guys don't want to raise your hands and you want to send in a QR code, that'll work. For the brothers, every one of you guys have to raise your hands. That's like mandatory. And yeah, just feel comfortable, talk. We're not here to give you guys like a lecture, and it's not podcast only me and Ustadh. Like, it's meant to be all you guys joining in. That's the whole point of all of this. And if the sisters, if it's possible for you guys to come just a bit more central here, that would be great. And then yeah, so Assalamu alaikum. We have Ustadh Hassan. I know a lot of you guys don't or might not know him. Some of you guys are first year. So Ustadh, if you could tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, everything about you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. I would like to apologize first. I'm still recovering from a slight flu, so might not be very articulate or clear in my speech. I could ask the sisters, please come here. I just don't want to turn to you every single time. So if we're in this general direction, then I don't feel like I'm excluding the sisters from the conversation. Apologies. Yeah, I don't know how long ago was the first Sheikh in Chai.
I think it was a year exact. No, a year.
Gotta be
more than
a
a term.
year.
A year and a term. Because it started
Gotta be
spring
more than a year.
24.
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, this is one of the university events across campuses that I actually really like the format for. And one of the reasons why is that it's not a traditional lecture. And it's also not completely hands-off. We talk about anything. It's not like that either. There's usually a topic, a theme, and then we play it by ear and go forward. I serve here locally at the campus whenever the MSA needs me. But I'm usually on multiple campuses throughout the semester, including UTM, York, Laurier as well, and now starting very soon, inshallah ta'ala, UFT as well, the downtown campus. I'm still a student, so I haven't graduated. I'm not Sheikh, scholar, or any of that. I'm in an 11-year program doing it was supposed to be an 8-year program, but now it's an 11-year program, and it's most likely looking like it's going to be a 12th year. Doing my specialization now. I finished my alimiya a couple of years ago, doing my specialization in the sciences of the exegesis of the Quran. So make dua that my dissertation is approved by next year around this time. And I'm no longer in weekly classes. Learning never ends, but at least structured learning where you have to show up as a student, that might be a little easy on the schedule going forward. But I'm always happy to be here whenever you guys need me, even outside of Sheikh and Shai, and I hope this is beneficial for everybody.
So wondering if you can. So I know you were a math student here, right? Undergrad math student before.
Yeah, a lifetime ago.
And as I think many of everyone here knows, that's pretty hard program to go into.
Any math students here? Oh my God.
Yeah,
all right, these guys know.
Yeah, quite
Everyone else thinks they know.
So, knowing how hard, or at least thinking that we know how hard it is, can you kind of walk us through how you balanced such a hard program as math, and then also, like, given you're very young, very, very knowledgeable, you pursued some sort of education, some sort of Islamic education during that period while you were in undergrad. How did you balance the two? And I know a lot of these guys want to do the same, and sisters, same thing.
Okay. Could I say something that maybe is not very popular, or you might not like it much? But my job isn't to say things you like. It's to say things that are beneficial for you. I don't think people at your age should be chasing balance the way it is presented in our communities. Maybe balance is not what you should be seeking at this moment. You're a student. which means that your schedule is not supposed to be study sometime, this another thing, and this another thing, and there's like 5 things you're doing, and you're balancing between 5 things. Maybe that's not what you should be doing. Maybe as a student, primarily, it should be lopsided towards your primary commitment, which is, in your case, studies. And therefore, you will redefine what balance means for you because you have a primary role by which your parents, your community, your professors are all expecting you to perform a particular way. This is quite odd that people think that an average individual like me or you are able to do 6 things and give the right of all 6 things equally. This is not something that actually happens in real life, right? The fact that you excel at something comes at a consequence of you not excelling at other things. And at some point, you have to be okay with it. A lot of you are here because, mashallah, you made it. How many first years are here? Just to get an idea, that's a lot of first years. All the sisters are, no sisters in first year. Okay, a couple of sisters. Yeah, the fact that you're at this university in the programs that you're studying, it's because you made it, alhamdulillah. So you know what it's like to have life out of balance. Because your life was out of balance. That's how why you're here. Actually, anybody who achieves anything tremendous achieves because they broke some barriers of normalcy, right? So we have to get rid of this idea of balance as being the norm, because for a person who's a serious athlete, their athleticism should not be at the same level of commitment as everything else because that's their primary role. So there are certain things you can't compromise on as you excel in studies. That's a better conversation that we can have. What are those things that no matter how busy you get, you're not allowed to compromise on? Yeah? It's a more productive conversation. Like, for example, your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, its least litmus test is your prayer. That's not up for compromise. When prayer time comes, everything else becomes secondary, including your primary role, which is that of a student. And this is one of the primary meanings of Allahu Akbar, which is the enunciation of the adhan and of the iqamah and of the salah. It begins with Allahu Akbar, which translates to Allah is greater than, not Allah is the greatest. That would be Allahu al-Akbar, Allah is the greatest. Or Allahu huwa al-Akbar would be Allah is the greatest. That's not what the Arabic says. It says Allahu Akbar, which is Allah is greater than. Well, greater than what? Greater than whatever is it that you're pursuing in the moment. So for someone, that could be studies. For someone, it could be while they're driving. For someone, it could be while they're having a conversation. For someone, it's they're watching a sporting event. It doesn't matter what is going on. Allahu Akbar is that Allah will take priority over whatever is it that is engaging our mind in that moment. So I think the question of balance is not the right question. The question should be, as I want to succeed in my role as a student, what are the things that I never compromise on? And there's basically a bunch of things. Yeah, your relationship with your parents, you shouldn't compromise on, no matter how busy you get in life or what's going on, right? We already talked about your prayer, your some form of study of the Quran. A lot of you are studying very incredible things, alhamdulillah. Some of you have 3 courses, 4 courses, 5 courses. All of us can add a spiritual elective. The spiritual elective, that would be the study of your Quran that you have to do personally. Yeah, we could all add that, 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, a reading/contemplation of the verses of the Quran as a spiritual elective. It's not difficult to do that, right? You don't have to pay money for it. It's a free course. It pays dividends in the akhirah as well, so pretty good deal. So yeah, I think so. I think the balance will create you in. It's not helpful. Balance is not helpful for you. Figure out what your primary role is, and then figure out what you can compromise. It's a better conversation to say, how do I balance these 7 incredible things, right? If you want to do one thing right, you cannot balance all things properly.
So with that in mind, as students, you're sorry, one point, and then I'll get to you, Wasi. Sorry. As students, were kind of, I guess not even as students, within this period of time between like 18 and 25, people say that your brain develops until 25,
Yeah.
and your habits could also strongly develop during
for
that
some
period.
males, for some males, it's later than 25.
Okay. So then during that period, if your kind of habits are strongly developed during that time or more things, how do you not get lost in the sauce of, school, co-ops, a bunch of people, math, engineering and everything. These guys all go, California, big companies, you get lost in the sauce of like working for Apple, Tesla, this, and if your focus is the student, but your habits are developed during this period, how do you not end up kind of stabbing yourself in the back by building a habit where you're focused too much on what you're doing here? And even though you have that non-negotiables,
Yeah.
they are still non-negotiables, but they're not like trumping your initial thing.
Yeah, this is a very broad question. So can I scope your question a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. So human beings don't do very good with tasks. We do very good with systems, which means as a person, what you want to do is you want to create systems around you and not specifically be dealing with term-to-term tasks, because that task changes for a lot of you because you go up to co-op, and therefore you lose all of your habits that you build as a student for 4 months, and then you come back after 4 months and you have to relearn how to be a student, almost as if you got a concussion and you forgot all of the good practices that you had established, and now you have to restart. So it's very good to create habits. One, for example, habit that everyone should look into, I called it the Muslim advantage. Muslims on campus have a natural advantage over non-Muslim students because you wake up for Fajr, that you don't drink alcohol, that you're not allowed to get distracted by chasing lustfully to the opposite gender. Like, you don't understand how big distractions these are for our non-Muslim counterparts on campus. And you won't realize this unless you have non-Muslim roommates or you're very close to non-Muslims on campus, and you will see what are their thoughts plaguing their minds on a daily basis, right? And then when you compare how easy the Sharia by default makes it for people who just want to be productive, almost to say that if our non-Muslim counterparts here just applied Sharia within their lives, it just would be like success would just be easier for people. Just because if you're not allowed to get drunk, then hours of your life and a lot of money is saved. If you're waking up for Fajr and you got a test or exam to review for, you're already in a state where you're awake, where your limbs are functional, when you already have a head start over your peers. If you're not worried about how the opposite gender is always viewing you, you can save a lot of time in front of the mirror. Yeah, there's a lot of advantages of just locking in and being, having a taqwa-focused mindset. But apart from that, I think what really helps, I'm going to summarize a bunch of books for you. So those of you who are taking notes, this will be helpful. A lot of success comes from building systems, right? Have you people read Atomic Habits? All right. So not nearly enough people have read one of the most pivotal books of the last decade. Okay, so you guys have homework. Go read Atomic Habits. One of the things that James Clear, the author, says in that book, which is explicitly like, by the way, you don't have to read it. You could just read some of the productivity books that are written on the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and it'll give you a more robust analysis of his book than his book. But one of the things that he says in that book is that human beings don't rise to their goals, rather they fall to the systems. What that means is that you can set goals. Everyone starts the term off and saying, you know what, I'm never missing a class this term. And that's what first week of September mindset is like. People who are in not first year, how does that last? Right? Does it last through even October?
I skipped the first week,
Right?
so I don't know.
Right. So we don't do well with goals, you guys. It's just not how we function. We do well with systems, because systems have consequence checks. They have accountability, right? So just create systems out of everything. Seriously. If you create systems out of everything, you outsource the hard work to the system. You don't have to do the hard work. You've already designed a system that does the hard work for you. Okay? And it's not easy to develop that mindset where you systemize everything in your life. But systemizing things in your life really does work. It
What do you
helps.
mean by systemizing? Like
So let me give you an example, just so that this is practical. Habit stacking is an easy thing to do. How many people here leave their rooms in the morning for class and forget to brush their teeth? So two hands, well, two hands and both males, exactly like every other majlis I've been to. And the sister's like, how is that possible? You haven't met. You haven't met enough guys. It's possible. All right? So most people don't forget to brush their teeth. Everyone brushes their teeth. Okay? You can habit stack now, which means you make a system, you make a rule for yourself. I will not brush my teeth. Let's say you're trying to gain muscle. I will not brush my teeth until I do 40 push-ups. Because brushing your teeth is a non-negotiable for you. You can't fathom leaving your home without brushing your teeth. Well, guess what? Because of that, you've leveraged this non-negotiable practice of yours and linked it and stacked it with 40 push-ups. Now, for a fact, if you can't sleep without brushing your teeth, and you can't leave your home without brushing your teeth, you've secured in 80 push-ups a day. And that's part of a system now. So you can guarantee that at the end of this week, you've done 560 push-ups, which is 560 more push-ups than you did last week. And you could apply this across the board. You could apply this for study sessions. You could apply this with regards to your meals. There's certain things you will do before you have a meal, right? I'm going to use the fitness example because I think it's more relevant for everybody. But the same thing happens with spiritual malaise. People struggling with spiritual aspects, they could habit track and stack their spiritual habits, the things they will do anyways, right? So, is Rayan here?
There was like,
He had to step out.
Rayan Mahmoud.
Yeah, he had to step out. So, for example, for me, I have the system. If I want to show up somewhere, I show up slightly early, and then I park my car in the furthest possible parking spot. Okay, because it allows me more steps towards my destination, and for each step, I can pick a dhikr, and then for each step, I can utter that dhikr. It's a habit stacking thing, right? Now, how many times in a day are you consciously planning on doing dhikr? For me, I'm driving around to a lot of locations. So for me, actually, 6 to 7 times in a day. I do the same thing at work, right? So the farthest parked car in the parking lot at my workplace is mine. It's not because I like walking. It's because it's stacked with a habit, which is my steps towards this building here would be scattered with the adhkar that I will choose that I need for that moment, right? So you could do this with anything. I'm just giving you some random examples, but you do that with anything. So that's what I mean by systematize.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know Wasi, sorry, we went through. I know you had a question.
Yeah, we have to backtrack to the balance thing. So because you said you prioritize and then everything kind of clicks, the thing is, if you prioritize, like, once you get your priorities straight, the balance kind of automatically comes in. I'm not saying there is a balance. Like you do.
There's not a 50% balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, how do I say? It becomes more tolerable. Like you prioritize that.
Yes.
Everything kind of like clicks.
Yeah, and as long as you're not neglecting your non-negotiables,
Yeah.
that's what you have to stick with. Yeah, that's correct. That's well understood. Yeah. Can I give you guys some paradigms? And then maybe it'll help you understand what I'm saying, because sometimes I'm talking and it's like weird stuff. So let me give you some paradigms that'll make sense, okay? So I'm going to summarize a bunch of books for you, all right? So first one of them is a book that you guys are all very familiar with. It's the second most bought book, purchased book after the Bible in the Western lands. Does anyone know what it is? Does anyone know? It's not
I
Harry
was gonna
Potter.
guess Harry Potter.
No, it's not even close.
Uh,
No.
oh,
It's-
Bone.
It's too new. It's too new for that.
Captain Underpants.
No. Does anyone know? Your parents know it well. It's Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
I don't think my parents know that. Yeah? They probably know the Arabic version or whatever they had in Egypt. No way.
You'd be shocked, dude. That book's been translated into over 40 languages.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm guaranteeing you there is an Arabic version that was a bestseller in
You know,
Egypt.
I'll go ask my parents
Ask
and I'll let you know tomorrow.
Ask
Inshallah.
But it's a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He became a millionaire because of that book, by the way. And he divides those 7 habits into, we're not talking about the habits. He divided the 7 habits into 4 categories. And so there's 4 chapters in the book. And the first chapter is what he calls principles and paradigms. He basically said that any effective person who's made an impact in this world, every single one of them, he studied their lives, and it turns out they did the exact same thing. So like there is a recipe for being impactful. There is a recipe that works for everybody. It works for athletes, it works for politicians, it works for entrepreneurs, it works for authors. It's the same thing. It's just they're applying it in different fields, but it's the same method. And so the first thing in that method is what he calls principles and paradigms, which basically summarizes to they believe in something that they're willing to sacrifice for. Every person who's impacted this world has exerted themselves in something that they felt it was worthy to, annihilate themselves in. Just the first. The second is that they had what he calls a private victory, which is they weren't just about the talk, they actually lived those principles in real life. Can you imagine someone who's always telling everyone, hey, everybody should eat healthy, and then they don't have a private victory in this matter, meaning they themselves eat whatever their desire succumbs to, right? If someone is always telling other people to fear God, but when no one's looking, they do things in which they don't fear God. This hypocrisy is ugly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kabura maqtan inda Allahi an taqulu ma la taf'alun. Is disgusting acts to God that you say what you don't do yourself, right? So principles and paradigms, they have something to struggle for. Private victory, which is they apply those principles in their own personal lives. Then public victory, they're not selfish. They proclaim the truth of the things they believe in to other people. And they're an ambassador to their goals and principles, right? They create a movement, right? Everywhere they go, the wave of what they believe in goes with them. And the fourth one is renewal, which is life is going to get very hard for someone like that. So when life gets hard, they're able to renew their commitments again and reinvigorate themselves and reset. And what's interesting is every 4-year-old kid in the Muslim world, including you guys when you were 4, you knew this. How did you know this when you were 4 years old? Yes?
I used to sacrifice a lot of time to play video games.
Yeah.
That felt very easy.
Yeah, but private victory, public victory, renewal, all of this stuff, and impacting the world, these ideas. I'm telling you, you all knew this when you were 4 years old. You knew this because one of the first surahs that you memorized as a child was وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, principles and paradigms, وَتَوَاصَوْا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, which is private victory, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, which is public victory, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, which is resilience and renewal. Yeah. So the most bought book in the history of Western civilization after the Bible is something that a 4-year-old has memorized a more eloquent Arabic version of. Right? But that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. If you're not doing this, you're a loser. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. We are told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of us are losing time. And this is why one of the gross mistranslations of that surah is the word asr. How is it usually translated? Wal asr. How do they translate it?
By time, by the age.
Yeah. Is Amna still here? Is Amna here? Is Amna here? No. By time?
By time, yes, what they say.
Yeah, but like Arabs here, what is asr time for you, like in regular lingo? Yeah?
Inching away.
Inching
Like,
away.
Time that is like, how is slipping away.
Time
Bit
which
by
is
bit.
slipping away. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Any Arabs here? Okay, Arabs, what's asir?
Juice.
Oh, juice. Okay, good. That's asr. It's the same word. You know, like asr salah is when, because how do you get juice? You got to squeeze the fruit. And as you squeeze the fruit, what's happening? The juice is being extracted, but the fruit is being demolished. Isn't that true? Okay, what time is asr salah? When the day is being squeezed. So there's little day left, right? So asr means in the Arabic language, the decreasing nature of time. Allah is taking an oath by the fact that all of us are losing time. Then he says, mankind are in loss. Why are we in loss? Because what are we losing all the time? Time. Yes? And then he says, except those people who do these four things, they're not losing time. Because what are they doing? They do something in that moment which captures this moment and transfers it into the akhirah. So it's not lost. Right? Everybody else, a moment comes and a moment goes, and they're one moment closer to death, which means they lost time. But the people of Surah Al-Asr are doing those four things in the moments they've been given, which is them converting this moment and sending it into their account of the akhirah, which means they haven't lost it. They've captured this time and not lost it. Right? So that's the first book, Stephen Covey's book. We just summarized. Now you go home and read it. Okay? If you want a more detailed tafsir of Surah Al-Asr. The second book, I know you have questions. I'm going to stop talking in a while. My throat won't even let me talk much, so it's fine. The second book, we're already scaring people away. You see that? People are like, there's another book. Second book is a book called The Triple Package by Amy Chua. And her and her husband studied institutions, corporations, individuals, nations, cultures that went from rags to riches. So they studied success stories, people who were nothing, and then they built a 7-figure business in a very short time. All right? Or businesses that were absolutely failing, and someone came in and they changed the CEO, and boom. And like in the next 2 years, it was the most talked about thing ever. And they wanted to study, are there patterns of success? It's a very similar motif. And they found 3 things. That's why the book is called The Triple Package. That they found that people who turn their lives around and they go from rags to riches have 3 specific protocols of living. And they apply that and it works. So the first one, she says, the first one is a high sense of superiority. It's not arrogance. High sense of superiority means that you believe that you were created for great things.
And so
Right.
how do you differentiate that between going into arrogance, and how does one keep those completely separate?
Yeah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam. Allah honored the children of Adam. Human beings. Allah honored human beings. Should that give us a sense of superiority over everyone else? It should. He says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We created the human being in the best of molds. Shouldn't that give us a sense of superiority over everything else? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. You are the best of nation that was extracted for the service of mankind. But notice, you are the best of nations. Allah is telling us we're the best of nations. Shouldn't that give us a sense of superiority? Yeah, but what the Quran does very masterfully is that it always pairs it up, just like Amy Chua does, by the way, because her second characteristic is a high sense of insecurity, which is what? Which is, although I am meant for great things, I am not living up to my potential. See? And that's how you make sure you're humbled. You don't say, I am meant for great things and look how great I am. You say, I am meant for great things, but I'm not worthy of it. And so all successful rags to riches stories, according to her, are based on individuals, corporations, companies, institutions that have this mindset that they are meant for great things, but they're not living up to their greatness because that gives us them the impetus to push harder, right? And the third characteristic that she says is impulse control, which is very difficult for young people, but it's the idea that you are going to purchase the joy of later for the sacrifice, with the sacrifice of today. So you're not going to look at today as today I do what I want. No, you look at today and say today I'm going to do what is right. And in the future, perhaps I will get what I actually want. And this is Allah's trade with us from dunya and akhirah, right? This is Allah's trade. This is Allah's demand from us. That if you sacrifice your dunya, Allah says He will give us the akhirah, right? And He will give us the dunya and many times more. This is the Quranic trade. أَفَلَا أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى تِجَارَةٍ تُنْجِيكُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ النَّارِ. He says, should I not guide you towards a trade? Allah says, let's make a deal. This is in the Quran. He's asking us, should I not ask you to make a deal with me, right? You give your life and your wealth in the path of God, and in return, I will ensure that you don't ever come near the fire. That's our deal, right? So it's the sacrifice of today for the joy of tomorrow, right? And these are all, by the way, Amy Chu is not a Christian. These people aren't religious folks. They're sociologists, social psychologists, and they're just doing all these longitudinal research over like 10, 15, 20 years. And like, yeah, and then it's like a verse, like a part of a verse, which summarizes like 20 years of research, right? But all of this is in the Quran. For example, Allah says, مَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. You didn't give Allah the due, they didn't give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the due that it was required, right? He says to us, to Muslims, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا آمِنُوا, O people who claim to believe, why don't you truly believe? As in, like, you're not living up to your potential. See, like these humbling verses are there explicitly in the Quran, right? And then impulse control verses. تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَ وَتَذَرُونَ الْآخِرَةَ. You love the now and you put away the future. What's wrong with you, right? وَالْآخِرَةُ أَشَدُّ وَأَبْقَى. What I recited in the Maghrib Salah, that the akhirah, the next world, is more. There's plethora of it, and it's everlasting. So why would you ignore that and prefer the trinkets here, right? إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. This worldly life is just an illusion. Don't fall for it, right? So this is book number 2. Yeah? Does everyone understand what I'm trying to say? Okay. Because I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm very sick. All right. The third book, and I'll stop talking. The third book is called Mastery by George Leonard. George Leonard was a Aikido instructor. It's like a martial arts. And George Leonard was playing with a very interesting idea. He would see people come into his dojo, because martial arts is one of those things like you watch Karate Kid and you join your closest dojo, right? Or you watch like MMA or something and then you get into martial arts and then you sign up for like a 6-week thing, and week 2 you get your backside handed to you and you say, well, this was not for me. It requires movement. And people stop. And then there's some people who go for a long time, and then there's some people who stay for decades and become legendary. And so he says, after years, decades of doing this, he wrote this short little book called Mastery, in which he talks about what he's seen over so many decades and why America is doomed to fail as a project. But he basically says it's because of the people coming into his dojo. He said what he saw was that there were certain people that he called them dabblers. And dabblers were those who were They would start something because they were passionate about it. And the moment things would get difficult, the dabblers would quit. So the dabbler would be like someone who watches the US Open and they watch a tennis match with their friends. And then the next day they'll go to Sport Check and get a tennis racket and they'll Amazon tennis balls. And they'll go with that friend and they'll start playing tennis. And the third day that they're going to play tennis, they'll start to serve and everything just doesn't work. And they realize that it looks easier on TV, it's very difficult to do, and therefore they will never touch their racket again. It's the same person who will watch one of those cooking shows or like, a recipe on YouTube, and then they will buy the pan and the ingredients to make this thing, and then they'll try it and they'll realize it's so easy on YouTube, but then you can't DIY greatness in being a chef. It actually comes from years of experience and things of that nature. And then so they'll quit cooking. And I'll tell you something, the dabblers are the most amazing people you'll ever meet. Do you know why? They have the most amazing experiences. They have the best garage sales. Everything's brand new, right? They usually spend a lot of time on Marketplace, hosting things. Because they'll say, good is new, only used once. That's a dabbler, right? And they have interesting conversations because they've done so many things in life, right? But they don't achieve anything. They just don't. They go from activity to activity, from this dopamine hit to that dopamine hit, and nothing under their belt, right? The second type of attitude that he distinguishes is what he calls a hacker. A hacker is someone who is who pushes and ensures that when things get difficult, they're able to push through, but they never aim for greatness. They're okay being okay, right? And hackers are great because in their circle, hackers are good at things because they hacked the thing, so they're good at it. So in their circle, they're a good tennis player. In their circle, they're a good chef. In their circle, they're good at this and good at that. But in the grand scheme of things, they're exactly how they are at 22 years, at 42 years, at 62 years, because a hacker is not trying to become great at anything. They just want to make sure that they're not bad at anything. So it's pretty good, actually. And then the third category of person that he highlights, the third attitude, is that of a master. And according to George Leonard, a master is somebody who is he's grateful and she is grateful for where they are at, but never satisfied with where they're at. They're always trying to push further. So I'll give you an example. Kobe Bryant famously said that, so how much should you practice something? How much should you practice something?
I read in a book it was like 10,000 hours.
10,000
that was
hours.
Also on a reel.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
10,000 hours. That's been disputed in the social
No.
sciences.
So you're saying Instagram Reels is not the greatest?
It's unfortunate.
I
no.
don't think we should continue this
Yeah.
conversation. That's all my knowledge based off of.
Yeah, this is actually a really good point. But the reality of it is that if you ask most people how much should you practice free throw shots? Until you get them right consistently, correct? Yeah, that's what a hacker thinks like. You know what a master thinks like? You practice the free throw shots until you're unable to miss, even if you wanted to miss. So you don't practice something until you get it right. You practice something until it's impossible for you to get it wrong. That's how a master thinks. It is very different, right? A master is on the path of perpetual progress. There's a different world they live in, right? So if they recite Quran, they're not happy with the Quran they recited. They're grateful because they got somewhere, but they're not happy with it. A master reciter finishes reciting with a teacher, and then the very next day is looking for a more critical teacher. Could be more difficult on their Quran. That's different from a hacker, right? A hacker finishes their Quran recitation, they throw a big party, their family throws like a Ameen party. You know, my son, daughter finished the Quran, everyone bring gifts. Yeah? A hacker is pleased because they were blessed with the ability to recite the Quran. A master is seeking to recite like the Prophet ﷺ, and they will not stop until the day they die. It's not the same person, right? What if I showed you this verse in the Quran? I'm not joking. Like with all three of these attitudes, it's in the Quran. It's Surah Al-Fatir, verse 32, 35, 32. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ أَوْرَثْنَا الْكِتَابَ الَّذِينَ اصْطَفَيْنَا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا. Then we allowed our book to be inherited by chosen slave of ours. According to the Quran, anyone who's Muslim is a chosen slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they have access to this book. And by virtue of having access to this book, they have direct communication with Allah, which means Allah has chosen them for guidance. And then he says, فَمِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. From amongst the people who have access to the Quran, there are those who are going to wrong themselves in light of the Quran. Meaning they will abandon it, they will not look at it, they will dabble with the Quran. وَمِنْهُمْ مُقْتَسِدٌ. And from amongst them, there are those who will have an average relationship with the Quran. They'll hack the Quran through. Yeah. وَمِنْهُمْ سَابِقٌ بِالْخَيْرَاتِ. And amongst them are those who are going to excel in all things good. They're going to push ahead. Right? The master's mindset. So I thought with the topic that was assigned to me for discussion, those three books should, if we adopt the mindset of the triple package, which I showed you is rooted in the Quran, the master's mindset, and then develop principles and paradigms, have private victories, public victories, and renew our covenant and commitments, we should have a very different outlook towards our tenure at studies in life than everybody else who doesn't have those paradigms. Yeah. Hope that helps.
I know there's, before we get to the brothers, you guys are a bit too excited. Calm down. Any sisters have any questions you guys would like to ask? No. Ozzy. Noor. I don't like you. Noor, please.
Some people, when they face difficulties when it comes to like commitment, discipline, all these sort of things, sometimes they attribute it to their personality, like, oh, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
That's just me. Is there any truth to that in any case? Or
Yeah, that's a very good question. So just to reiterate the question, so the sisters in the back in here, is Noor? Yeah. So Brother Noor is asking, some people attribute failure with regards to execution of set goals to internal infractions, personality deficits.
You made it sound a lot more beautiful.
This is what he said. This is what he said. Is there any value or truth to this? Yes and no. Do we have temperaments? Yeah, we have temperaments. Are those temperaments always conducive towards productivity? No, they're not. Therefore, there are some people who are genetically more predisposed to be productive. And then there's people who are environmentally predisposed to be productive. For example, people find it easy to read growing up in a household where there was an older sibling who was attached to reading. Lots of study on this. Okay, so what happens if you're the eldest sibling? Right? Or what happens if you're the second sibling or the third sibling and the elders were all into never reading? So there are some disadvantages because of your environment and the family you grew up with and everything. But the question is not that. The question should be, can someone overcome their personality defects that hinder their progress towards productivity? And the answer to that is yes. Imam Ghazali in the Ihya, he says that, of course, because his response is because there are people who can train dogs to do things. So if we can train dogs that are inherently animalistic to follow instructions and be disciplined, then we can definitely train the human soul to be disciplined, because the human soul in its honor is not equivalent to a dog. Right? Is it difficult to discipline the human soul? Yes. But Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, He said that the human soul is akin to a wild horse. If you don't train it, it will trample you to death. But if you train it well, it will win you many battles. So does it require tarbiyah, the human soul? Yeah. If you don't give tarbiyah to it, it will destroy you. Just to give you an example of how much of this is so critical. Anyone here familiar with Dr. Gaber Mate? One, two. So like the sisters all, like some of the sisters know, the guys are like,
Pretty sure 90%
Is that-
of the brothers are illiterate, so I think it's quite hard to recommend books to all these guys.
so he's written a book that's very valuable. It's called Scattered Minds. Gaber Mate says something. Unfortunately, he should have been the Canadian intellectual who should have made it big on social media. Unfortunately, the other guy made it big, who's completely lost the plot now, but he should have made it big. Ardent supporter of Gaza, by the way, and the Philistine movement. Not after this whole thing. He's been doing this for decades, right? He's the leading Canadian public intellectual. For those of us who don't know him, go home tonight and just watch his stuff. The way that he carries himself intellectually, morally, and with principle is something that we should be very taken by, right? Gabormate, Dr. Gaber Mate. He said that in his research, and he's one of the world experts in childhood trauma, in his research, ADHD is not genetic. Rather, ADHD is a response that a baby learns when they feel that they are a liability on a parent. So when a parent gets frustrated when a baby is crying, the baby can intuit that and feel a burden, that they're a burden upon their parent. And that's a very difficult thing for a child, for a baby to intuit. So what the baby learns to do is to distract itself from this thought, and they pick up the habit of distractibility, and then that's why they end up, anytime in life something gets difficult, they check out, because they've learned how to do that from day one of their birth. So, do living environments and genetics put predisposed obstacles in our lives? Yes. Can we overcome them? Absolutely. So is productivity easier for some people? Yeah. Good parenting does that. But is productivity more difficult for some people? Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's more difficult. But can you overcome it? Yes. With Allah's help. Yeah.
Any other questions? Shahiyar, bhai, please.
Building on discipline, you mentioned.
Can you yell so brothers in the back and sisters in the back and
So you mentioned
the ummah?
discipline, systemizing life, building, stacking good habits. We oftentimes find ourselves like falling short of something, not being able to keep up with the habits. It happens quite often, even though we know it's good for us.
Yeah.
So is there something wrong with the framework? Are we pushing ourselves too hard, or how would you, what advice would you give for us to stay constant and keep pushing back harder?
Yeah, firstly, this is a good question. So just for the benefit, repeating the question. Sometimes we have the perfect plan, we have goals set up, but the difficulty is in execution, and it's in consistent execution. So how is it that we can ensure that we can have consistent execution? And how do we make sure that we fulfill the commitments we make to ourselves and to our to-do lists? First off, there are certain hacks you can use, because this is very difficult. Firstly, you shouldn't have a to-do list. Because how many of you always complete your to-do lists in the time that you've appointed them? They don't work. To-do lists do not work. The most productive people report the least amount of finishes on their to-do lists. So for the people who are actually getting stuff done are saying it's not because of the to-do list, right? You should do a one-thing list. Not to-do lists, but a one-thing list. Which means today, pick the project that you least want to do but has the greatest importance. And that is the one thing that you need to get done today. The one thing list. Okay? And no matter what happens, you will not go to sleep until you do that one thing, because it's the only thing that matters today. And with that, in 365 days, how many tasks have you completed? 365. Okay? So the first thing is there's certain hacks you have to put in, otherwise it's difficult. You overwhelm yourself because you're trying to do everything. So one thing list firstly. The second is know that it's a sunnah to be habitual. And the Prophet said, أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. The most beloved deeds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those that are consistent even if they be tiny. Meaning, even Allah does not require grand gestures from us. Therefore, we shouldn't set grand goals. You know, ambitions, vision, yeah, grand. But the goal for today, tiny. Something that you can easily do. Right? You don't say, I'm going to start running 4 kilometers every day. No, you don't even get up and go to the fridge when you're hungry. So you shouldn't start with 4 kilometers. Let's try, you know, I live on the 3rd floor. I'm not going to take elevators from now on. Start with something more practical, right? So we're really bad at setting goals because we go either like all the way or nothing, right? And we shouldn't do that. So goal setting should be for encouragement purposes. So by the end of the day, we're like, yeah, I got that done, I got that done, I got that done. Right? That's why people who are not used to tahajjud should not say the sunnah of the Prophet is 8 rakat tahajjud, long sujood, and like, you know, they just get up, do your 2 rakat, shortest surah, shortest sajdas, and go back to sleep. Because right now you're telling your nafs that you love Allah more than you love sleep. That's all it is. It's not about the prayer. It's about disciplining your nafs. Eventually it'll get to a point where your nafs likes to pray. Then you can tell it to do long sajdas and all that stuff. But initially, it's just telling your nafs that sleep is not something that is more important than God, right? So you have to meet your soul where it's at, right? And that would help, inshallah.
All right, so we'll take just a few more questions. We don't want to. We'll take a few sisters and then leave you guys alone. I'm sorry. I think Ozzy had the form up. I didn't want to pull my phone out mid.
I have it yet. Read the question off.
Sorry, I got it here.
Got it?
Oh, yeah, you're going to have to read it. I don't have access.
So a sister is asking, you mentioned sacrificing today for the pleasure of tomorrow, and that putting so much effort in something comes at the expense of our effort for something else. So as Muslims, is it wrong for us to put so much effort and sacrifice into things that are not considered worship, such as education or career, because this ultimately may come at the expense of our worship?
Yeah, it depends how you define worship. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said that طَلَبُ كَسْبِ الْحَلَالِ فَرِيضَةٌ بَعْدَ الْفَرِيضَةِ. He said that the acquisition of earning halal income is a mandatory thing after your mandatory worship. So he thinks it's wajib. The Prophet said to have halal income is wajib. And in the modern world, if you want to have a consistent halal income in society, education is a prerequisite in many cases. So if you look at that perspective, then every time you're in class and you're studying and you have the right intention, you're getting rewarded as if you're in worship. So it's a matter of how you frame reality, right? Intention is a really powerful thing, right? Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari in the Hikam, he said, Al-a'malu suwaran qa'ima. Actions are mere appearances, right? He said actions are mere appearances. وَأَرْوَاحُهَا سِرُّ إِخْلَاسٍ فِيهَا. But the reality of an action is the essence of sincerity within them. So our studies aren't a problem if we're able to shift our mindset that our studies are for the sake of earning halal one day. Then every moment you're in your studies is there. I'll give you an example. One of the sisters once asked me, I don't know which MSA it was. It was an MSA. Oh no, it was a conference. At an MSA. It was an MSA conference where one of the sisters, I was in a panel discussion, and one of the sisters asked the panel, they said, what if a sister is not interested in ever working and they're only in university because their parents want them to get a degree, but they know that they're going to be a homemaker. So how do they justify all this time studying and getting good grades? And I said to them, do you think your accusation in education gets you a more righteous candidate as a husband? Gets you a better quality husband? She said, yeah. I'm like, all right. Your intention is to attract a more righteous person. Because, no, I'm not. Look, you guys, the Prophet said that authentic hadith in the Mustadrak of Al-Hakim, he said that man razaqahu Allahu imra'atan salihah faqad a'ana Allahu ala shatri dinihi. Whoever Allah has aided by finding this person a righteous spouse, then Allah has aided half of their religion. So whatever you do in your life right now to attract a righteous spouse is act of worship, like going to the gym. You see, with that intention, it's like I'm going to the gym because the spouse that I want to attract is not interested in someone who's out of shape.
I feel like you're looking at the brothers and calling them all out of shape. There's been a lot of gym references recently. I think you guys need to get the hint. So I'm just letting you guys know. Okay, wow. So now you're gonna attack this. Don't kill the messenger. I don't know. You guys are attacking me for no reason. Sorry, cut you off there.
That's good. That's good. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Any other sister questions? Sorry, before we take another, because I know we're gonna end soon.
You mentioned one of the points about superiority and how to counter arrogance was the insecurity,
Yeah.
feeling insecure.
Yes.
And how would you come to terms with feeling this feeling of worthlessness every time there is a failure?
Yeah.
So how would you like move through this?
This is a good question. You want to have that golden paradox. The golden paradox,
Could you repeat the
according.
question once?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the sister is asking a very important question. She's saying, we talked about a high sense of superiority, and we said that how we can refrain from arrogance through that. But we mentioned a high sense of insecurity, but then how do we prevent from feeling hopeless and helpless and absolutely nihilistic when we have a very high sense of high sense of insecurity, because it can happen. You feel worthless, right? And this is very common. You guys, the main issue of modern social media culture, as pointed out by so many studies, including the great professor Dr. Jonathan Haidt in The Anxious Generation, another really important book that you should put on your book list. Can I do a shameless plug for a book club, by the way? So every month in Mississauga, myself and a fellow scholar, Ustadh Zaid, we do a monthly book club where we study important books that are very relevant for university students and young professionals. Okay? And every month it's a different book. For those of you who can make a one-day trip to Mississauga, it would highly benefit you if you just come by and eat a really nice free meal with us and discuss the book. And hopefully, with just $20 to $30, whatever the Amazon price for that book is, build a library of important books. Because a lot of your high school tenure, you're reading a lot of things that have no relevance towards your personal success and giving you an understanding how the world truly works outside of the ivory towers of the university. Okay? So the book club is really helpful. But to answer your question, which is a very important question, we would first say that nihilism is not possible for people of purpose. The antidote of feeling worthless is knowing that you have a tall task at hand. You don't have time to think that your work doesn't matter. Like, you don't have time to entertain those thoughts because there's so much work that needs to be done. Let me put a paradox in front of you and see how you deal with it, right? If you look at yourself in the past, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, all of that time that you spent, would you say that you could have lived slightly better? Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so that should put us in tawbah mode, correct? And if you look at where you want to end up after death, after Yawm al-Qiyamah, where is that? I hope we're in agreement. Just Jannah? Firdaus, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ said that when you ask for Jannah, don't ask for Jannah. ask for Firdaus, huwa a'la al-Jannah. It's the highest peak of Jannah. Wa awsat al-Jannah is the centermost, the most prized region in Jannah is Firdaus, is the greatest real estate. So if our past, we look at it and we're not impressed with ourselves, but in the future we want to be the neighbor of the Prophet ﷺ, what does that mean for right now then? If the past is that and the future is that, they don't align. Therefore, what should happen in the present? You don't have a choice but to have hard work. Right? You can't indulge the idea that your actions don't matter, because it's the only thing that is the difference between the future that you want, which is to be a prophetic neighbor, and the past of yourself that you know, which is that you could have done last year better. You could have done 2 years before better, 5 years before better, right? So from that perspective, it's not. And also, the Sharia doesn't allow it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already explicitly told us that when we get up to pray and we say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Allah responds to that and says, Hamadani Abdi, my servant has just praised me. Which means if I open my mouth in salah, Allah, who is the creator of the heavens and the earth, is speaking to me. How could you think that you are worthless? It's impossible. Right? Why would Allah speak to someone that He doesn't put value to? Right? So the Sharia counters those aspects.
Sorry, I know you have a question, Wasi. We'll make this the last question. Faizan had one, and then we'll end it because I know you're getting a bit sick of seeing the brothers' faces, to be honest. I am too. Faizan. I was expecting more depth to that question, I'm not going to lie. I'm joking.
Through Rayyan, Uzair, some of these guys. Okay.
Yeah, sorry again. Oh.
Through Amna. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys. You're going to have to come back next time for another, Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I think that was a good. You're saying that the book club's not a good question? Shame on you. No. I think that was a decent. Okay, my last question then. Let me have some fun. You talk a lot at the very beginning about renewal, and then everything's kind of based on more or less kind of like your intention. Everything's based on your intention, kind of. And you're also saying, especially when you brought up that situation where you got a question from the sister. You said that your intention is to find a righteous spouse, for example. What happens if you enter university with the wrong intention, but is it okay for you to continue going through, and then that renewal process, how do you become self-critical enough to analyze that, this is kind of like, what am I doing with my life? I have to do this. Because it seems like a lot of the points that you brought up today has been it's kind of a lot of it has a basis that you need the capacity to be able to self-analyze yourself, to say that I'm garbage, but I want to be here. I need to do good.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good question. We have to understand that we don't have the capacity, and we can't afford to live an unexamined life. Right? Like going with the flow type of thing. Or the fitting in type of syndrome, just fitting into things. You guys all played Tetris. You know what Tetris is?
I played 2048, but yeah, same thing.
Same thing? Okay. Whatever the modern day equivalent of Tetris is. You got these like blocks that come down, you got to place them. And then if you make a row, then it just disappears. Right? And you want to prevent this line from going up. Right? You guys all know what I'm talking about? Okay. So what does Tetris teach us? It teaches us that if we fit in, we'll disappear. Yes? So the first foremost thing that we should be very cognizant of is that everyone here has their own path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your job is to figure your path. And it's not going to be the path of the other guy beside you or the other sister beside you. It's not. Everyone here has a unique road to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the meanings of the word sirat, by definition, is that the sirat is only one. There's no plural for it. Like the word tariq has turuq. The word sabil has subul. The word madhab has madahib. All the different words in the Arabic for a path have plurals, except the word sirat. Sirat is only one. There's only one sirat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the meaning of the word sirat embedded in it is the concept of wasi'. like it's vast. That means there are many lanes. And your lane doesn't have to be the same as the people around you, right? Find your unique lane. The only way you find that is if you have internal conversations with yourself, right? And if you're asking what the Quran is forcing you to ask, the Quran is forcing us to ask a question to ourselves, because Allah is asking us. He says, فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are you headed? This is a Quranic question. It's not just like you read it and you move. No, Allah is asking us, where are you headed? Like, what are the GPS coordinates of your heart? What do you place in your heart? Where are you headed? Right? Who do you serve? Right? Who reigns supreme in the throne of the heart? The Quran is forcing us to ask these questions. And so unless we're asking ourselves these questions, we don't develop habits, we don't become intentional, we remain purposeless, we'll follow our friends into anything, because if you don't have something to stand for, you'll fall for anything. Everything works. So if you want to be a principled human being and take all of these advice from the sages that I quoted here, the first step in that is to be self-critical, is to have conversations with yourself, to write stuff down, hold yourself to a higher standard, right? Is to make sure that you are flying away from mediocrity as much as possible, right? What the late Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif, he once told me, I was seeking advice from him, and it's something famous he says all the time. He said, I said something and I talked about, I said my Sheikh said to not publish anything until I'm 40. And he says, Hassan, give your excuses a black eye, right? And what he's basically saying is that we don't have room in a world of chaos. Orderly people don't have the capacity to take a back seat, right? The starting team for the Muslims don't look too good. You don't get to stay on bench, right?
Jazakallah khairan. I thank everyone. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all the questions. It's hard when there's, inshallah, so many people. But yeah, Jazakallah khairan for everyone coming. And I hope that you guys, inshallah, will continue coming and continue throughout the term being more active. Like Ustadh Hassan just mentioned, like each one of you have something important to bring. So, let that shine, let that show. And don't think it's too, it's not meant to be formal. It's not meant to be somebody talking and spitting information and you're walking out here, the Looney Tunes thing where your head's all blown up and whatever. Just have fun. Everything's good. Everything's happy. Have fun. Find your way. And inshallah, we'll see you guys again next week, inshallah. And Jazakallah khairan, Ustadh Hassan. Any last words? Yeah, next week, Monday. Change time. Sorry? Well, that's out. That's a later thing. Let us have Ustadh Hassan say his last sentence or last phrase, sorry. Whatever you'd like to end off with, and then, yeah.
Now may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless everyone in their time, give you guys righteous company. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيْهِ. Follow the path of those who are connected to God. So this is my recommendation to everybody here. At your age, the most formidable thing you can do for your success is to find people who are on the path of success and tether yourself to them. Not so that you copy them, so that you are reminded of what your purpose here is. And it's important. All great people had great mentors. All great people had great companions, right? It's interesting that the Prophet's companions are not called his pupils, his students. They're not the talamid of the Prophet. They're not tabi'in, followers of the Prophet. What are they? They are the ashab. They're his companions, right? So adopt the sunnah of having companions. It's a sunnah to have companions and not mere acquaintances, right? The stronger your bond with each other is, the faster you go towards the road of success, yeah? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with ease in our difficulties, with clarity amidst chaos, and with understanding of His book and the practice of His messengers' actions. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. I'm excited for next month. We're going to be doing TaqwaCon, right?
Inshallah.
So excited for that. There's a couple of other big announcements as well that I'll run by your MSA before announcing. But inshallah ta'ala, looking forward to next time we can do this.
Inshallah. And that was actually a beautiful segue into what tomorrow's class is. He said, seek good companions. The best way to learn about who's a good companion is to go to, we have Story of Sahaba every Wednesday.
I didn't
with
even know
Muf-
that.
That was actually
I didn't
beautiful.
even know that.
Like I was thinking how I'm supposed to say this. I don't want to sound like I just want to be like, hey, go to this. That was actually beautiful.
I had no idea.
Yeah, Stories of the Sahaba. What time? 7:30 in SLC with Mufti Hamad. And I hope to see all your beautiful faces here, inshallah, or there, and here, both, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, everyone, and we'll see you guys next week, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.